There is a book sitting inside the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. It is small. It is fragile. Its pages are made of vellum, the skin of a young animal, and they are filled with a script that no human being on this planet has ever been able to read. Not the greatest cryptographers of World War II. Not the supercomputers of the Cold War era. Not the NSA. Not Google. Not any of the hundreds of professional linguists, amateur codebreakers, historians, mathematicians, and obsessed geniuses who have spent portions of their lives trying to understand what it says. For 600 years, this book has been the final boss of human knowledge, the one door nobody could open. And then, in 2025, an artificial intelligence walked up to that door and the lock turned. What it found on the other side is not what anyone expected. And the deeper you go into what the AI decoded, the more you will begin to understand why the researchers who saw the results spent days in silence before they told anyone. This is not a mystery that ended with an answer. This is a mystery that ended with a warning. Let's start from the beginning, because the beginning matters more than you think. The Voynich Manuscript was purchased in 1912 by a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich from a Jesuit college in Italy. He paid a small amount for it, believing it was an encrypted medieval medical text. He was wrong about the encryption. He was wrong about the language, and most significantly, he was wrong about what it was. The manuscript is approximately 240 pages long. Radiocarbon dating conducted in 2011 at the Arizona Accelerator Mass Spectrometry Laboratory dated the vellum itself to between 1404 and 1438 CE with a 95% confidence interval. So the physical material of the book was created in the early 15th century. But here's where the first strange detail enters. The ink and the pigments used in the illustrations were applied over centuries, suggesting the book was added to and modified by multiple hands over a very long period of time. This is not a book that was written once. It is a book that was kept alive. The illustrations inside are what have made this manuscript so deeply unsettling to everyone who has ever opened it. There are drawings of plants that do not exist. Botanists have examined every single botanical illustration in the Voynich manuscript and cannot match them to any known species on Earth, not extinct species, not obscure species, not misdrawn species. The plants in this book appear to be either completely invented, or they are illustrations of plants from somewhere that is not Earth's known botanical record. Then there are the astronomical charts, circular diagrams that appear to show star systems and celestial bodies, but which do not correspond to any known star chart from any civilization in the 15th century or any other century. And then there are the most disturbing illustrations of all, the ones that have made scholars deeply uncomfortable for 100 years. Small, nude humanoid figures submerged in pools of liquid connected by elaborate tubing systems. Nobody has ever been able to explain what these images mean. Until now. But before we get to what the AI found inside those images, we need to talk about what the AI found inside the language itself. Because the language is where this story becomes something else entirely. A research team, based at a private AI research institute and declining to be named pending peer review, spent 14 months training their model on every known ancient language, proto-language, cipher system, and undeciphered script, including Linear A, Proto-Sinaitic, and the Rongo-Rongo of Easter Island. They then applied the model to high-resolution scans of the manuscript's 240 surviving pages. Think about what that means. They did not train the AI on modern languages and ask it to guess. They trained it on every known form of human communication across all of recorded history, and then they fed it the Voynich manuscript and asked it to find a match. The initial results were dismissed as noise. Then, on the 312th training iteration, the model produced its first coherent sequence, and the researchers had to read it 3 times before accepting what it said. Read that again. 312 attempts. And then, silence in the room. And then, 3 readings of the same output. When scientists feel the need to read something 3 times, it is not because they are confused. It is because what they are reading is too important or too terrifying to process in a single pass. Here's what the AI concluded first, and this is where everything changes. The language in which the Voynich manuscript is written is not derived from any known language family. It does not share the morphological roots of Indo-European, Semitic, Sino-Tibetan, or any other documented linguistic lineage. Instead, the model identifies it as a constructed language, one built from mathematical principles rather than evolved speech. Let that sink in. A constructed language, not a language that grew organically from human communication over thousands of years, the way Latin became French and French became English, not a language that was borrowed from one civilization and adapted by another, a language that was designed, engineered, built from the ground up using mathematical architecture. Specifically, the model found that the script's character frequency distribution follows a base 12 mathematical pattern rather than the statistical distribution found in natural human languages. Base 12, also known as duodecimal, is not used in any known human language, but is considered by some mathematicians to be a more efficient counting system than the base 10 we use today. Now, here is why this matters. Every human language ever documented, every single one, follows natural statistical patterns. Letters and characters distribute themselves in ways that reflect how human vocal cords work, how human memory processes sound, how human thought organizes itself into speech. The Voynich script does not follow those patterns. It follows a mathematical pattern, a pattern that is cleaner than nature, a pattern that you would only arrive at if you sat down and deliberately designed a language from a set of mathematical axioms, rather than growing it from human mouths over generations. Somebody built this language the way an engineer builds a bridge, and then they filled 240 pages with it. We kept checking our work, the team's spokesperson said in a recorded statement shared with independent researchers. We assumed the model was finding pattern where none existed, hallucinating structure into noise, as LLMs do. But every verification test we ran confirmed the base 12 grammar. This language was designed. It wasn't spoken, it was engineered. And here is where things begin to escalate very quickly. Because once you accept that the language was deliberately constructed using mathematical principles that were not codified in mainstream European thought until the 17th and 18th centuries, the question that follows is unavoidable. Who, in the early 15th century or before, had the mathematical knowledge to engineer a language on base 12 principles? And more importantly, why did they need to? Now we get to what the AI actually decoded, and this is where the story stops being academic. The decoded portion is approximately 30% of the total manuscript, with the remaining text still resisting analysis, cover several distinct subjects. The most coherent sections, which the team describes as the manuscript's astronomical passages, describe a cyclical catastrophe that strikes Earth approximately every 12,160 years, a figure that corresponds precisely to half of the 25,920-year precession cycle of Earth's axis. Stop. 12,960 years. Half of the precession cycle. The precession of the equinoxes is one of the most complex and subtle astronomical phenomena in the observable solar system. It is the slow wobble of the Earth's rotational axis, completing one full cycle every 25,920 years. The ancient Greeks knew of it. The Babylonians may have tracked it. But to encode half of that cycle as the interval of a catastrophic event, to build that number into the mathematical grammar of a constructed language, to hide it inside a manuscript that nobody could read for 6 centuries, that is not the work of a confused medieval monk with a wild imagination. That is precision. That is documentation. According to the decoded text, this event involves a great darkening caused by a body of fire that travels in a long arc, which researchers have tentatively interpreted as a large comet or asteroid on an orbital cycle that brings it near Earth every 12,960 years. The most recent such event, the text implies, was the catastrophe that ended the last ice age, approximately 12,900 years ago, a date that aligns with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, first proposed in 2007 and still contested among scientists. Now, pay very close attention to this timeline. The Younger Dryas event, the abrupt, violent collapse